We have finally reached the final episode of this season. Hi, my name is Enrique Cardona, and welcome to the final review of X-Men 97, Episode 10, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 3. So, I'm not going to bore you with the details. For more information, you should check all the videos that I did about X-Men 97 from old to new. I finally managed to complete the entire series, and it is finally time to put this into rest and wait for season 2 and see what happens. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. So, the episode ends, honestly enough, with Charles Xavier and Magnus, aka Magneto, in a flashback where they first met, which was during a war. But it turns out that it was just a mindset, or basically a psychic attack by Charles Xavier in an effort to try to convince Magneto to stop doing a lot of bad things and restore the magnetic field to the entire planet. He refuses to do so, so without any hesitation, Xavier uses all of his powers, all of his mutant abilities, in order to force Magneto to restore the magnetic field to the entire planet Earth. And that reactivates all the Sentinels. Humanoid Sentinels are attacking everywhere. We see a bunch of heroes in different places. We see Psylocke and most of the mutants in Genosha. We see Alpha Omega, Omega Red in Russia with his team defending the planet against the humanoid Sentinels. We see Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger, Doctor Strange. We see Iron Man and Captain America with President Kelly, and the attack restores. The humanoid Sentinels are taking over, and we see X-Men Gold being captured by Mr. Sinister and Bastion. They presume that Jean is dead, or at least they think of it. Bastion destroys the psychic damper that Beast and Forge created and basically taunts the team, telling them that they're not human, they're not great, that that the Sentinels are superior, blah 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 blah. Basically making a lot of speeches and being an egotistical bastard. This guy is just an asshole, seriously. But yeah, basically he forces Cable to tell them how many times he tried to stop the attack on Genosha, and Cable is forced to say 200 times. And it is definitely a dire situation, as Bastion is ready to make the Sentinels to kill Cable against Mr. Sinister's wishes, because after all, one of the things that Mr. Sinister always was fascinated with was with the entire lineage of Scott Summers and Jean Grey, and he's not afraid of using them and their mutant abilities to create his own force. But just as they are screwed, we see that Jean Grey reemerges as the Phoenix. Now, let's be honest, the Phoenix Force, when everybody talks about it in other media, is always about the Dark Phoenix, how the Phoenix is an evil force, when in reality, that's not it. And if you watch the original episodes, you see why. But in this moment, in this dire situation, we see that the Phoenix Force imbues Jean Grey with power and basically allows her to use all the powers of the Phoenix, not just to restore the psychic damper back to his origin, as well as put it on the head of Bastion, disabling all the humanoid Sentinels in the world, but also uses the Phoenix powers in order to take away Mr. Sinister's mutant abilities. You see, Mr. Sinister over the years has experimented in other humans and other mutants in order to maintain immortality. And if you watch season 5 of X-Men, you realize what he had to do in order to achieve those goals. So, as we see the Phoenix extract all that mutant power from Mr. Sinister, he's left to be left as a disheveled, horrible humanoid form of his oneself. Ones that look more empowering, strong, and even more handsome, to say the least. Now he looks like a horrible, creepy old man, and Morph mocks him. And that's something that I really enjoyed because Morph was used by Mr. Sinister in the original show, and it only makes sense that this guy wants to mock him, look at him as just a pathetic little man. And thus, Mr. Sinister runs away. We're probably gonna see him restore his original form in the near future, but for now, he's not a threat. And thus, the Phoenix Force leaves Jean's body, but in a very beautiful moment, she says that she manages to tap into the energy of the Phoenix to protect her son. And yes, Jean acknowledges that Nathan Summers, Cable, is his son. And yes, I do consider it too. Cable doesn't have to say anything, but we know that he's saying, yeah, I do have a mom, and she's there. And when that moment passes, we see that Bastion is angry, rips the arm of Cable. Don't worry, his arm is already a mechanical arm, so it's no biggie. But he uses it to restore a form of his and becomes an ultra Bastion, basically almost like an angel of death, almost reminiscent to Archangel from the X-Men. Yeah, very, very reminiscent, calling him the future incarnated. And thus, Bastion is headed to the asteroid, to Asteroid M. I forgot to mention last time. The island, the floating island that I mentioned last episode was actually called Asteroid M. And thus he heads over there and he's going to use it in order to, well, basically pull an Ultron. Basically, if you remember Ultron from the Avengers movies, he was going to use a planet or an asteroid in order to, wipe us out and start over again. And that's the plan of Bastion. Use Asteroid Man to crash into Earth and kill all life. Very Ultron, very Ultron. I think he's gonna ask for copyrights. But as he heads to the asteroid, we see that the remaining X-Men, which are Cyclops, Jubilee, Sunspot, Rogue, and Nightcrawler, are there. And we see that both Professor X and Magneto are in a psychic trance, which puts them out of action for a while, meaning that they won't be able to help in this situation. And also, speaking of that, we see that Wolverine is still recuperating after getting his entire adamantium body out of his systems. So yeah, Wolverine is not going to be helpful this time. And honestly, while Wolverine is the best in what he does, and what he does is not nice, he's probably not going to be able to help this time. So while that's going on, Jean communicates with Scott, reassuring that she's okay, but that Bastion is heading over them in the asteroid M in order to crash the asteroid into the planet. And while the reconciliation between Sunspot and Jubilee is a little bit rushed, is probably saying this, well, is probably the odds are against us. And even Rogue agrees with that, because despite everything, she doesn't want everything to, to go to hell. So she also makes a change of heart. And in the end, Bastion heads into the asteroid M, tries to destroy the warp core, but Rogue and Sunspot are there to stop him. So yeah, basically, this is a full-on battle to stop Bastion. Everybody is trying to figure out how to stop him. Magneto and Xavier are still in a psychic trance, Charles is trying to convince Eric to stop, to become a hero, and to recover the memories. After that psychic attack, it made Magneto to lose his memories for a moment. And that's something that Xavier is trying to do. Insert your gay jokes here, because a lot of people, when they saw those scenes, they made a lot of gay assumptions that Charles and Magneto are lovers or something, which is something that I already saw before with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen when they were playing Xavier and Magneto. Is weird, but yeah, as they are trying to, Charles is trying to get Magneto back, we see the X-Men fighting Bastion, each with their own special abilities and powers. Cyclops unleashing his entire laser beams onto Bastion, Jubilee kicking ass, and just like everybody else, Bastion underestimated Jubilee, and that got him his ass kicked. And as they see a Sentinel approaching, we see that in reality it's a control Sentinel by the other X-Men, which are Storm, Jean, Beast, and Forge. Well, Forge is in the planet because he's helping Cable. But yeah, basically the X-Men, the other team of X-Men arrive into the asteroid planet, to Asteroid M, in order to help the other team. And as we see that Bastion is trying to get back, and we see them we see him resisting. The other X-Men are ready to attack, but in a very shocking moment, Cyclops says to the team to stand down, because he wants to do what he was taught to do, to stop fighting the future and embrace it. Something that let's be honest, this is something that Cyclops wanted to follow. One of the things that I really appreciate about him is that he's a leader, and he sees when the situation is dire. We see that he's trying to tell Bastion that everybody makes mistakes, but there is ways to redeem himself, that mutants or humans are all alike. But Bastion has spent his entire life hating mutants for no reason, probably not even his choice, because remember, Bastion is just having parts of Master Mole and Nimrod in his head, and his entire life he has just listened to those voices and nothing else. Bastion is disagreeing with the X-Men, but they are trying to go through with him. They're trying to make him realize that there are things beyond hatred. The humans are giving birth to mutants all over the world, no matter what. The mutant race will continue, but they will find a way to coexist with the human race. And that's something that we should take a page of this. I know this is something that a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, Magneto was right, that you should wipe out an entire human race in order to make room for the mutants. And I know a lot of people are basically in favor of that, but I don't, because it's the same assumptions that a lot of people have made over the years. Because if you think that the solution is to zero sum, get rid of everything in order to construct something new, is a solution, then by God, you will ruin everything. It's like something that I realize. Nostalgia could be toxic if you allowed it to drown you. We've seen a lot of things in media being brought back for a nostalgic pop or to remember good times. But sometimes we allow ourselves to be consumed by it, to deny anything new or different, because we always gonna have a connection with something as a kid from the past. And here's the X-Men 97 saying that no, you should not fight against the future. You should embrace the future. Find ways to compromise, to help other people, to be good. That's something that this is a commentary that a lot of people could relate to nowadays and that you should take into consideration. The idea that Magneto was right simply because he wants to prove superiority over others is flawed. It's flawed, it's folly, it's not flawless. It's basically an idea of taking away everything but without the knowledge of creating something new. You have to use the past in order to create the future and maintain a present. That's the key of being a leader. That's the key of the human and mutant race. It's not just one individual saying, oh, we should do this. It's everybody collaborating. And that's something that Cyclops, Storm, Jean, everybody in the X-Men is trying to pull. Well, I know a lot of people want to say, oh, we should put on this side or we should settle on this side. That's not always the right answer unless that other side has something that could help other people. But if that solution is to get rid of everything else, then that is not a solution. That is literal genocide. And that's something that the X-Men are fighting against. Magneto's solution was to create an utopia only for mutants. He didn't consider what would happen if that idea happened in real time, if the mutants are the supreme form. Hell, in House of M, in the comics, we see that future, and we see that not everything is good. And a lot of people are probably having a lot of rough times. And even then, Magneto wasn't happy because it's not necessarily something that he would want. Deep down, despite his claims of superiority, he also sees that he doesn't seem to realize that it could bring bad consequences. Also prejudice, because it's another form of prejudice that he's assuming. And that is why I side with the X-Men. And that is why Cyclops is pushing away from Bastion's ideologies, from Magneto's ideologies. Because in the end of the day, the mutant race and the human race should never be put apart. They should coexist. But of course, before they could get through Bastion's head and mindset, unfortunately, President Kelly launches missiles against Asteroid M, even though Captain America tells him not to do so. But they do, and unfortunately, the asteroid hits the missiles hit the asteroid, putting it in a collision course to Earth. So yeah, that should show you governments are stupid when it comes to decisions. But I'm not here to talk about politics. Regardless, the asteroid is heading to Earth. Bastion is presumed dead in a black hole or an explosion, and the team are trying to theorize a way to push the asteroid away from the planet. And as we see that, we see that both Scott and Jean are saying goodbye to Cable just in case they don't make it. And in a very beautiful moment, we see Cable pouring his heart out, saying that when he was growing up, when he was joining a resistance group in the future, he heard stories about the X-Men, how he was angry because he wanted to belong in those stories, fighting alongside his parents. He doesn't say it, but we know he's talking about his parents. And he said they didn't get any justice. And that is so beautiful. It's almost like hearing someone saying, we didn't get enough justice for Jean and Scott in other forms of media. And that is true. I love Scott Summers. I love Jean Grey. I love Cyclops and the Phoenix. I love those two because they are basically the representations of what we could be in the future. Cyclops is a great leader because he makes the hardest decisions, but for the benefit of everybody else. You don't always agree, but he always cares about people. It's one of the reasons why in the comics, Ms. Marvel hugs him, considers him a friend, because he is a good person. And Jean loves him because of that. Jean is also a great person because she understands pain. She helps through the pain. And despite having pain of her own that she cannot control, she's not alone. And Scott, through thick and thin, he's with her all the way. And in a very touching moment that I'm not gonna lie, it made me go misty-eyed. Scott allowed Cable to see through his eyes without any powers. Jean manages to damper them for a moment, and we see Scott's eyes, how he inherited them, how Cable inherited those eyes, and now they're his. So they're saying goodbye, saying they love him. They're trying to stop the asteroid. We see everybody's perspectives. We see a very cool moment of Peter Parker and Mary Jane watching this news. And let me tell you, for those who don't know, this is the original Spider-Man from the original show from 1994, from the animated show in 1994. And yes, this is connected to it, meaning that after the finale of Spider-Man 1994, he found Mary Jane. He finally is with Mary Jane. And most likely she knows everything about Spider-Man, his identity, and the fact that they are both married. Well, technically, he married a clone of Mary Jane, but she was made of water. But despite that, obviously, they still are together. And I cannot wait. If they ever made an episode or a show around Spider-Man 1994, you bet your ass that I'm going to be watching that. Because it is the original show that introduced me to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to the entire Marvel Comics, to everything about Marvel. And I owe it to that show. But yeah, as we see that, we also see Morph consoling Logan, who's still in a coma. He is calling for Jean, but Morph, realizing this, uses Jean's form to say, I love you, Logan, stay with me. This is something that I didn't notice until now, but Morph is actually in love with Logan. I mean, it makes sense. It honestly makes sense if you remember from the original show. Now, Morph is being described as a binary or a non-sexual, or a bisexual, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the specifics on that. But even with that knowledge in my head, it is also important to remember that yes, he loves him because Wolverine never gave up on Morph. Even after he was presumed dead and he was manipulated by Mr. Sinister, Wolverine never left Morph's side. And after he joined the team, we see another in scenes together. And while it's not obvious at first, it is clear that Morph has feelings for Wolverine. Whether Logan reciprocates those feelings or realizes that in the future, we don't know. But I'm glad that we saw that moment. And in that instant, when the X-Men are trying to stop the asteroid M from crashing onto Earth, that's where Xavier manages to go through Magneto and wakes him up. And Magneto uses his powers to retrieve asteroid M from the planet. And as we see that, they disappear in some form. I should probably mention, Sunspot and Jubilee are not in the asteroid after Jubilee was sucked out of the asteroid, but Sunspot saves her, and we see them along with Forge and Val Cooper watching how the other X-Men disappeared without any signal. A few months later, we see the mansion still up to scraps with some memorials there. We see Forge working with a picture of all the mutants, including the X-Men, the ones who are disappeared, presumed dead, or even active. And we see Bishop returning, telling that this is not the first time that the X-Men were presumed dead, and he was going to help Forge to finding them. And that is something that we're going to see next season. And just as we see the episode ends, we see that Rogue, Nightcrawler, Professor X, Beast, and Magneto are in a timeline in the past. We see them in Egypt, where as far as they're concerned, they don't know how they got there. But it's Egyptian times. And as just we see that discovery, we see that Cyclops or Jean are in the distant future where they are surrounded by the Ascani clan, led by Mother Ascani. And we see that, and we see a young Cable. And just as we see that, we see the other X-Men are meeting En Savanur, a young En Savanur. And if you know who En Savanur is, you know what he means. He's Apocalypse. This is a young Apocalypse before he became Apocalypse. And that's where it ends. They say to be continued, and a post-credit scene shows us that Apocalypse is in Genosha, saying so much destruction, so much death. And we see that he has Gambit's card in his hands. And I'm going to get into my theories on what's going to happen in the next season. But overall, this was a great finale to wrap things up. We don't see the conclusion of what happens afterwards with the human race and the mutant race after the events, but we see that Fortune and Bishop are going to work together in order to bring the X-Men back and to hopefully help to stop other problems in the near future. It was a great show to end things, and it's also a great show, a great episode to show us how even in the dire situations, there's still people who have hope and they will fight regardless of what people say, regardless of one of those what bigotry or even outright hatred will say against. That hope and goodness will win, and the ideals like the one that Charles Xavier have will still persevere in the near future. But now let's talk about theories. Now, we all know that Cyclops and Jean ended up in the future where they meet a young Cable. But now they are accompanied by the Ascani clan. And like I said, Mother Ascani is leading that group. Now, this is something that a lot of people haven't noticed at first glance. But Mother Ascani in the comics, and hopefully in this season, is actually be shown to be Rachel Summers. Rachel Summers, the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Yes. And she is Mother Ascani, and hopefully we will see that in the future. Maybe they will address it, maybe they will not. Maybe they will make an assumption that we will see a young Rachel Summers in the future. But yeah, basically Mother Ascani is helping Cyclops and Jean and a young Cable. So that's something that I really, really glad to see. And that's something that I look forward to watch in the future, because it definitely something that, I should probably mention, because of this, they are basically adapting a comic book that retells the story about Scott Summers and Jean Grey racing Cable in the future, and it was called The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. Cyclops and Phoenix, yeah. So it's based on a comic book. So yeah, I'm glad that I saw that. But yeah, definitely something that I will look forward in the future. Maybe we will see hopefully we will see new things in the future. We will see probably new things. We will see how the Cyclops and Jean are going to go back to their original time. Maybe we will see a young Cable realizing of his destiny, and the three of them interacting with Mother Ascani. I should also mention that Rachel Summers, aka Mother Ascani, is voiced by Gets McFadden. And if you don't know who that is, she is Dr. Beverly Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation. So yeah, there's a Star Trek joke here too. I'm not gonna lie, it's really good to listen to that voice. And after watching her in Star Trek Picard, it's good to see that she is part of the Summers family. It's good to see. And so we also see that the other X-Men, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Professor X, and Magneto are stuck in the past along with a young Apocalypse before he became Apocalypse. So the question remains, how they ended up in different times. Well, I have to theorize that both in the future and in the past is basically due to the machinations of the present Apocalypse. That somehow he used his powers to put those the X-Men back in distinct forms in time in order to help him to become it. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, didn't Apocalypse die in the original X-Men in the episode Beyond Good and Evil? Well, yeah, but he was brought back in season 5 because of Cortez. Oh God, Cortez is. I remember when Cortez was introduced. He's a psychopath and a maniac, saying, "I live for them. I live for you. You won't take me alive." Sorry, it's just you probably don't know who Cortez is, but trust me, he's an asshole too. He tried to kill Magneto back when he created Asteroid M in the original show. Yeah. But yeah, because of Cortez, Apocalypse came back and somehow he used something in order to put the X-Men in different points in time. In the past when he became Apocalypse, and in the future when he ruled the Earth. So yeah, we're gonna see what happens. But the question remains now, with seeing those teams in distinct times, what happened to Storm, Wolverine, and Morph? Now, there are theories out there. We don't know what happened to them. My theory is that both Storm, Wolverine, and Morph ended up leaving the asteroid just in time. Maybe they are forming a team on the planet just undercover. Maybe creating X-Men from Australia. I don't know. Maybe a Hugh Jackman joke over there. Maybe they ended up in a different time. Maybe both Storm, Wolverine, and Morph ended up in the time where Wolverine became Wolverine. Maybe in a different time where Wolverine was in the past. Who knows? I just know that they are missing, and we have to wait what happens to them. And as far as Apocalypse grabbing Gambit's cards, it's presumed that, yeah, Apocalypse is going to find a way to resurrect Gambit as a member of the Horsemen, the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and he's probably going to become Death itself. Basically, he's Horseman of Death, if I'm correct. But yeah, that's the theory. We don't know if other teams of X-Men are going to be formed. Season 2 is presumed to adapt some of the costumes from the Grant Morrison run when he brought back the X-Men in the early 2000s. So yeah, we had to wait and see what happens and see how they're going to deal with all these situations after the defeat of Bastion. But overall, a great episode, and hell, a great show. I really recommended it, guys. You should do yourselves a service and watch all season 1 all together. Trust me, you won't regret it. This is probably the greatest shows of nostalgia that we ever got thus far. And hopefully we will see more amazing things from X-Men 97 in the near future. But for now, we have to rest and wait. So next time, I'm going to review something else. I'm going to go back to Creature Commandos. I need to finish that season. And after that, who knows? But I'm going to try to do something else as well. But keep checking out my videos. Give a like and subscribe. The more likes I give, the more notifications you get, and the more I can do this job. So I hope you guys enjoy my review. I'm Enrique, and I hope to see you next time. See you guys soon. Peace.